Hi, I'm Kelsey from roughandtumblefarmhouse.com, and today we are going to be making mozzarella from scratch. So mozzarella is a cheese that originates in Italy, like a lot of cheeses do, and it is one that is excellent for beginning cheesemakers. It doesn't require a lot of ingredients. This version doesn't take a lot of time, and it is really versatile. You can use it on pizzas, or you can use it chopped up into a salad, which I'll show you here at the end. And it has a really good melty texture, so nachos even. So it's a really great cheese if you're just getting started with cheese making, or you're looking for a way to use up some of your excess milk, because it also freezes really well, which we'll get into in just a little bit. So mozzarella traditionally was made from either sheep's milk or from buffalo milk, actually, but we have just good old-fashioned cow's milk here that we will be using. So let's take a look at the ingredients and the supplies that you need. So for ingredients, you are going to need 1 gallon of milk. I have raw milk from our cow here on the farm. Now you can use skim milk if you want to. I did that for a while just because I was able to get 3 different products basically for my milk thin. So I'd skim the cream, make butter, use the milk to make mozzarella cheese, and I'd feed the whey to my pig. So I was thinking, 3 things for your money. It worked out really well. And then probably a year or so ago, I made a batch of mozzarella without the cream skimmed off, just a whole milk batch. And it was so much better. So I guess that's something to say about that full creamy fat. It really makes a big difference in the cheese. Again, you can make it just with the skim milk, but the difference is, I'd say, is the texture is a lot softer, the flavor is a little bit sweeter, and it also melts a lot better. I notice when you make it with the skim milk, it almost is a little more rubbery. Again, still perfectly good, but if you've got extra milk floating around, or you don't mind just using whole milk, you can get it at the store, wherever, I really recommend using the whole milk. So anyway, 1 gallon of whole milk, or skim milk, whatever you want to do. And then you also are going to need a fourth of a rennet tablet. And you can use either a fourth of a rennet tablet, or you can use a fourth of a teaspoon of liquid rennet, whichever you have. And then you are also going to need some citric acid. And that is all you need for your ingredients. Also water, cool water. But most of us have that just on tap. Better if you have filter that you can use. For your supplies that you need, you are going to need a large pot. You want to use stainless steel when you're making cheeses. And this one I think is an all-clad, but you can pick up, if you're going to do a lot of cheese making, just kind of cheaper stainless steel pots at Walmart or Target for less than $10. So it's really worth investing in if you're going to make a fair amount of cheese. And you're also going to need a bowl that is going to be glass. I wouldn't use plastic. You definitely can't use metal because this is going to go in the microwave. So a glass bowl I recommend. You're also going to need a measuring cup. Again, I have a glass measuring cup. Doesn't matter, whatever type of measuring cup you have is fine. And then you are also going to need a knife. This is going to be for slicing the curd of our cheese, which we'll see in just a little bit. And then you're also going to need, which I didn't set out here, a measuring spoon. So let's head over to the stovetop and start making our mozzarella. Wait, first before we go to the stovetop, I should mention that this is not my original recipe. I'm not nearly smart enough to come up with my own cheese recipes. This recipe comes from the New England Cheesemaking Company. I have talked about them before in previous cheesemaking videos. They have tons of resources and free PDFs, and they've also published an actual book you can buy in terms of cheesemaking recipes. So I will link in this blog post, which is a link to the blog post below, and then in that blog post there is a link to where you can get to their original recipe that they shared. And this is just my version of how to do it. So check out New England Cheesemaking Company for cheesemaking supplies, recipes, etc. Okay, the end of that pitch. Let's make the cheese. Wait, dang it. We're never going to make this cheese. I forgot one more thing. You need a thermometer, an accurate one. I'd say get a digital one. Yeah, I know you can get those ones where it's just kind of the little gauge that you look at, but those are kind of wonky. So I recommend getting a digital gauge thermometer. Okay, for real this time, we're going to make the cheese. All right, so here I have a half a cup of water, and we are going to dissolve 1.5 teaspoons of citric acid into the water. And you want to have cool water, unchlorinated. So again, if you live in a city, you want to make sure that you are filtering that water before you use it. And maybe I'll be able to actually get a teaspoon here. There we go. There's 1 teaspoon. And about 1/2 teaspoon. Okay, I'm just going to give that a little stir. And then I'm going to let that just kind of dissolve a little and add milk to the pot. All right, so let's get our milk in the pot. Before we do, check out the cream line on this from our Jersey. She just does awesome. All right, so we are gonna pour this milk in the pot. And there's a decent chance that I will probably lick that cream right out of the top of that container later because it's just so good. All right. There is our gallon of milk. Now you want to add the citric acid to your milk at about 55 degrees. So this milk I set out this morning to let it kind of warm up a little bit, and we're pretty darn close to 55, so I'm going to call that good. So we're just going to add, this is the water with the citric acid dissolved in it, to the milk. And we're going to just stir it in really thoroughly here. And apparently, I forgot to mention too in equipment, you do need a good spoon for stirring. This video is definitely like a C+ on me remembering the equipment that you need for making the recipe. Okay, now we are going to heat this up. I'm going to put it on probably somewhere between a low and a medium, just so it'll heat slowly. We don't want that milk to scorch on the bottom, and we are heating up to 90 degrees. So it's a good idea to not be doing other things while you are heating the milk up. It's good to just be kind of right in the kitchen on top of that milk so you can kind of keep stirring. The more you stir, the better really to keep it from getting congealed on the bottom, but just keep a good eye on it. And so we're going to let this just heat up, come back and stir it every once in a while until we hit that 90-degree mark. Now while that milk is starting to heat up, I am going to get our rennet ready. So here I have a rennet tablet. You can see that it's kind of scored so that it's in 4/4. And I'm just going to take my kitchen scissors and just snip it. Never cuts just perfect down the middle, and then try and get as much of a 1/4 of a piece as you can. So that one looks pretty good. And I'm just going to plop that in the water and it'll start to dissolve. And then scoop up my rennet tablet mess and save these little bits for another batch of mozzarella later. Okay, so we've reached our 90 degrees. So at this point we're going to be adding in our rennet tablet, which has been dissolved in this water. And so I'm just going to pour that over top. And then you want to stir with a up and down motion, they say. So I would just kind of do this little maneuver all the way across the pot. And we're going to stir for 30 seconds. All right, so we have incorporated the rennet for 30 seconds. That's what's going to let our milk set up and coagulate. So now I'm going to cover it and we're going to let it sit for 5 minutes and then we'll see how it's looking. All right, so we're going to take a look here and see if it has set up yet. Now, 5 minutes is how long it typically takes, but sometimes it might need a little bit longer. So this, I think, is just a little bit too runny still. You want it to be a really clear separation between the curds and the whey. You want kind of custardy texture. This is almost there. I'm going to give it just 1 more minute, and then we will slice it up. All right, let's see how it is after 1 more minute. Definitely a little more solid here. So I'm going to go ahead and make slices. You want to do kind of like a 1/4 inch to a 1/2 inch, and I am not super consistent, but it's not going to be the end of the world. So we are slicing all the way across the pot in roughly 1/4 inch strips. So I start on one end and I'm working my way all the way across, and then we are going to slice the other direction. So we're making little cubes almost, and you want to make sure your knife gets all the way to the bottom of the pot. So you can hear me dragging it very gently, and you'll start to see here that the curds in the whey are going to be separating out. Okay, so you can see we've got kind of our checkerboard pattern. Now I'm going to take at an angle and try and slice underneath. So the point is we're trying to get the curds smaller, because if there's less surface area, it's going to be easier to get that excess moisture, that whey, out of the curd later. And so we want the slices to be as close to the same size as possible as well. So there really isn't a perfect way to do this. You just kind of give it your best shot here. But you can definitely see how you can see kind of more of the liquidy stuff in here, and then your solid curd right here. So the next step is we are going to heat this back up to 105 degrees, so probably about the same temperature right in between low and medium. And we're going to give some gentle stirs with our spoon here. Nothing too fast or hard, but just kind of gentle. And you might see as you go some chunks of curd that are a little big still, and you can just give those a little slice, get those down to the right size, and just gently, gently stir and keep monitoring your heat for that 105 degrees. Now, as you are stirring, you're going to start to see that your curds are shrinking a little bit, and it looks like the amount of whey is increasing, and that's what you want. So that is that extra liquid leaving your curds, so you're not going to have a real soupy cheese. So we've got exactly what we want to see going on right now, and we're still quite a ways from our 105, but we're creeping up fast. All right, so we reached 105, and so we're going to turn our heat off. And then we are going to stir for 2 minutes. If you stir for longer, you're going to get a firmer cheese. You can stir for up to 5 minutes. I personally like the texture that I get with just doing the 2 minutes. All right, it has been 2 minutes, so now what we're going to do is transfer our curd over to this bowl, which is going to go in the microwave. So this you can do with a slotted spoon. I like to just do it by hand as long as you've got good clean hands. And just transfer it all over to your bowl. I kind of let some of the whey run out of it, because our goal is to get as much of that whey out of the cheese as possible. And the whey is great to have too. We usually feed it to our pig, or you can use it to ferment your pig's grain, which is really good too. You can also cook it down. If you have a really good thick bottom pot, like an enamel cast iron or something, you can put the whey in there and just let it cook down for a few hours, and you get this really good traditional kind of Scandinavian cheese, I think it is, called Majost. I could be pronouncing that wrong. I apologize to any Scandinavians who are watching this, but it's really good and thick and really a dark yellow. It's kind of got the flavor of, if you've ever had those little snack packs where it's like a little breadstick that you dip in a very bright orange cheese. It tastes like that cheese, except for the fact that you know that it's made just with your really good whey. So it's very strong and very tangy and really, really delicious. But again, you just have to let it sit and simmer for about 4 or 5 hours on your stove until it cooks way, way, way down. So you only end up with maybe a half a cup of it, or a cup at most, from all this whey that you'll see here in just a minute that we have left. So, okay, I got just about all the curds out of there. If I leave a few extra for the pig, she will not complain, I don't think. So now we're just going to drain this extra whey back into our pot. Give it a little bit of a press to get it all out as best you can. All right, and now we are going to take this and put it in the microwave for 1 minute. If you don't have a microwave, I will link below to a description how you can do this just with your stovetop and hot water, but I'm going to cheat and use the microwave. All right, so this is the point where you're going to want to put your gloves on unless you have hands of steel. If you watch videos on YouTube of Italian cheesemakers making this stuff, they don't use gloves. They just have tough, incredible hands and manage to do it without. I find that I absolutely have to use gloves or it just burns my hands. So you can see a lot more whey has come out, so we're just going to do the same process again and just press and get that whey out of our cheese. And now it says in the instructions that I followed previously, it says to knead it like you're kneading bread dough, and I have found that kneading it like I would traditionally knead a loaf of dough, you end up with a lot of kind of pockets of moisture. So I have found that just by kind of pressing like this with it, seems to do a pretty good job of getting all that whey out. And it does get kind of heavy as you go, so you can kind of prop it on your bowl. So we're going to squeeze that all out. We're starting to get to the right texture that we want to see for kind of our final stretching and shaping. But we're going to take this and pop it back in the microwave again for 35 seconds. All right, so that was another 35 seconds. You can see that we have more whey to be drained off. Your cheese should be getting pretty silky and smooth and stretchy at this point. So we're just going to keep pressing out that whey. It may even be getting kind of stringy. Whoop. And here too, you can start to stretch it a little. Now at this point, you can microwave it again if your texture doesn't seem right, but this seems like it's just about where I want it to be. So you want it to stretch like taffy. It shouldn't just pull apart in chunks. It should stretch out really smooth and nice like this. So I've got this just about where I want it in terms of stretchiness. So I'm just going to stretch it some more to release some more of that whey. So we're still getting quite a bit of liquid out of there. And if at any point in time it starts to get where it's not stretching, it's just kind of pulling apart, then you want to just pop it in the microwave again for about 30 seconds. And you don't want to microwave it a ton. You want to kind of get this all done. If you do about one more microwave after this, that's fine. But you really don't want to be putting it in there a lot, or you're going to lose too much of your moisture and it's going to get kind of rubbery on you. So again, just kind of folding it over on itself and then squeezing it out like a towel. So just folding it and kind of squeezing it down. Okay, and I'm going to dump this whey out. And then I'm going to pop this back in the microwave again for another 35 seconds or so, because it's starting to get a little bit tough. You'll just be able to see how it's starting to tear a little bit. You get these little stringy bits rather than just stretch. So I'm going to heat it up just one more time. Okay, so I'm just going to stretch it a little bit more so you can see how it's really good and gooey. It's like the inside of a really good mozzarella stick or something. Just drain off that whey. And man, even with the gloves on, it's hot, so I just don't know how those Italians do this with just their hands, or not just Italians, I suppose anybody who's a really good cheese maker who doesn't have to use gloves, because that heat is intense. Okay, so that's looking pretty good. I'm just going to get this out of here, this whey. And now I'm going to add a teaspoon to a tablespoon. I typically just kind of do like a sprinkle of kosher salt across the top. I'm just going to do the same thing again, where I'm just going to kind of stretch it and work it in. All right, so at this point, while it is still good and stretchy, this is where you're going to want to start shaping it if you do want to shape it. So if you want to make it into balls, you just kind of pull a chunk like this and then squeeze tight around the base, and it should just kind of pull off like that. So there you have a mozzarella ball. Super simple. I'm going to set that out of the way. I saw too where they made knots out of it. So you go like that, just make a little knot, and then they just squeeze it off like that. So you can make little knots, almost like a little pretzel of mozzarella if you want to. I typically just do mine in kind of the ball shape. So you just start at the top and kind of squeeze it down. And then it should still be firm and hot enough that you can just kind of pinch it off. Ooh, that one got a little misshapen, but you can always smush it a little bit. Okay, so these ones I'm going to use for later for making pizza this week. So I'm going to cover them with cold water and then add some ice cubes and let them sit for a half hour to chill them down to pull that temperature out. This one is starting to glue away for me. We're going to cut this one up, and I'm going to show you a really quick, simple recipe you can do to make a really tasty summer snack. So there you have it, super simple mozzarella you can make at home, less than 30 minutes, just a few ingredients that you need. We use it a lot for pizzas or for a little salad like this. You can use it for nachos, whatever you want. You can also make it, and then I would put it in the cool water bath for about 30 minutes so it's got a more solid shape, and then either run it through your food processor or use a grater and grate it up. Put it in the freezer, kind of sprinkle it out on a sheet of wax paper or something and stick that in the freezer. And once it gets frozen solid, you can put it in freezer bags and then have it for putting on pizzas or whatever else you need. I will say if you're going to do that, make sure that you don't let it thaw first. Put it on whatever you're going to bake or cook and then put it directly in the oven from frozen. Please let me know if you try out this recipe. If you have any trouble, just comment below. Hopefully you have good luck with your cheese making endeavors. And always check back here at our channel. We have new videos every week about farming, family food, and fortitude here at our rough and tumble farmhouse.